In the late 1990s and early 2000s, housing prices skyrocketed in comparison to their actual value. It was considered a good time to buy a house because it could be sold for a profit soon afterwards, and many people across America were eager to take advantage of the soaring housing market. Banks and other financial institutions were all too happy to help, offering mortgages and even loans to cover a down payment regardless of whether their customers could actually afford to buy the houses they told them they could. Banks were able to get away with this by offering subprime mortgages to those who would not be able to qualify for a mortgage usually, or a loan of a certain amount due to their credit history, as well as adjustable rate mortgages with a low interest rate for 2 years or so before the rate would increase. Banks would tell their customers they could just refinance their mortgages when the rate increased to make the sale. For some, the ability to refinance never came, as when the housing bubble burst, these banks foreclosed on their homes for their inability to meet their loan payments. Banks were forced to foreclose on these homes because they packaged mortgages into pools and sold them in collateralized debt obligations to investors to make a quick profit. They also sold insurance on these pools called credit default swaps. When the housing bubble collapsed, banks owed billions to the investors that had bought up all the CDS insurance. It is September 2006. Meet Bella and Oliver. They are going to help illustrate how the housing crisis affected millions of Americans. Oliver and Bella are recently married and ready to buy their first house. They both have stable jobs and their credit scores are good. They qualify for a AAA mortgage and are able to buy a 3-bedroom house in a nice, quiet neighborhood. The two are very excited about their new home. Roscoe is also going to help us illustrate the housing crisis. Roscoe has a job, but his credit score isn't as good as Oliver's and Bella's. Regardless, he was still able to qualify for a subprime mortgage with the ability to refinance in a few years. Roscoe moves in right next to Bella and Oliver. However, what these three homeowners are not aware of is how precariously the U.S. housing market is currently perched. We asked Bob Moran to help further explain the Wall Street dealings that contributed to the housing crisis.
So, what really happened in Wall Street was with this push to lower standards to make money more available, okay? Wall Street, MBA types, came up with this financial engineering and created collateralized debt obligations.
Right.
Some people call them CMOs as well. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we really do here, for lack of a better word, is we start making chop suey. Right?
Yeah.
We are going to start slicing and dicing. So, the banks would repackage these loans that individuals took out into a product sold to investors on the secondary market. And by the way, it wasn't just mortgage obligations. They could also do auto loans,
right,
credit card debt, corporate debt, but they're called collateralized because there's some kind of collateral at the other end to pay for it.
Okay. The crisis eventually deteriorated to the point where the U.S. government had to step in. President George W. Bush passed the Troubled Asset Relief Program in 2008 to buy out toxic assets from financial institutions to help alleviate the downward spiral the housing crisis pushed the economy into. In 2009, President Barack Obama continued this by passing a bailout bill to provide massive amounts of money to financial institutions that were considered too big to fail, lest the unemployment rate rise even higher and the economy spiral even further out of control than they already had. The government was floundering, struggling to get a hold on the crisis while millions of Americans were forced to suffer the consequences of an unchecked mortgage and loan system that got out of hand in the worst possible way. For Bella and Oliver, the housing crisis dealt a blow. Bella lost her job, but they were able to hold on to their house, and unlike many others in their neighborhood, they did not face foreclosure. Roscoe, on the other hand, was not able to refinance his mortgage before the bubble burst and his house was foreclosed upon. He lost his job soon thereafter and has been unable to find a place to live in the meantime while he tries to get back on his feet. Both Bella and Roscoe have had their faith in money rattled by the housing crisis. When asked what they think the future holds for money, they graciously agreed to be interviewed. After everything that's happened with the housing bubble bursting, using your house and your job, and the economic downturn the U.S. has spiraled into, where do you see money going in the future?
I see it going towards more credit, less paper money,
So after everything that's happened with the housing bubble bursting and you losing your job and the economic downturn the US economy has taken, where do you see money going in the future?
Well, with the way the economy is, I could see them doing away with making coins because it's just so expensive, and doing away with the paper and it becoming all plastic.